Today, we are going to be writing an essay on diuretics and diuresis. And this is the outline I'll be using. I'll be writing the essay for diuretics separately and then diuretics separately. For diuretics, I'll talk about the definition. The loop diuretics, I'll discuss them. Distal completed diuretics, aldosterone antagonists, and then carbonic anhydrase. Then for diuresis, I'll define, then I'll discuss the three major: water, osmotic, and pressure. Now begin with the diuretics. For diuretics, these are the drugs. These are drugs that increases diuresis or increases the production of urine. So drugs that increases the production of urine are called diuretics. Okay? Now, for the loop diuretics, you can go straight to the point. You say, these are those drugs that act at the loop of Henle. And they are going to act on which particular receptor? The 1-sodium, the 2-chlorine, the 1-sodium, 1-potassium, 2-chlorine. I think let me put it that way. 1-sodium, 1-potassium, 2-chloride channel. Loop diuretics. Alright? Now, for the distal convoluted diuretics, this one will act on the distal tube. Examples of this drug, by the way, you have furosemide, furosemide. You have torsemide. So you define, you give where they act, you tell them where it acts, which particular receptor in particular, and you give example. Now, for the distal convoluted tubules, these ones should act on the distal tubules. They are going to be those ones that will act on the calcium, and will also act on the sodium channels. Distal convoluted tubules, a good example of them is thiazide. Thiazide diuretics. The G there reminds me of the distal tubule. Then for aldosterone antagonists, we have those that act on the collecting ducts. They are going to act on collecting ducts. And what is their function? Their function should be that they should be acting to inhibit the action of aldosterone. What does aldosterone do? Aldosterone causes the reabsorption of sodium alongside water. So any drug that inhibits aldosterone will mean that there is no reabsorption of sodium, neither water. And that is why it is also called potassium-sparing diuretic, because these diuretics have nothing to do with changing levels of potassium. So I also put here also called potassium-sparing diuretics. A good example of this one is spironolactone. Now, for carbonic anhydrase inhibitor, they cause moderate diuresis. A good example is the one we call acetazolamide. Otherwise called Diamox. Now, for diuresis now, which we are, what are you going to write in diuresis? Diuretics is defined as the mechanism for the production of increase in urine. Any mechanism that increases the production of urine is called diuresis. Drugs that causes increase in production of urine are called diuretics. The mechanism itself is called diuresis. There are three of them here: water diuresis, osmotic diuresis, and pressure diuresis. Now, for water diuresis, what are key things to write here? For water diuresis, let me write it way upwards here. For water diuresis, number one is that you should tell them that water diuresis occurs. It occurs when there is increase in free water. Free water is that amount of water that is excreted in urine. Okay, so when there's increase in free water. Now, a good example of a condition can be when a person takes alcohol. When a person takes alcohol, the body produces excess of urine. And that condition again is when a person has a problem with ADH production. When ADH production falls, probably a problem of the posterior pituitary or a problem of the hypothalamus, a condition that has been called nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. So in nephrogenic diabetic insipidus, this person does not produce ADH. There is no reabsorption of water, and this will eventually lead to increase in production of urine. So those are things to take note of in water diuresis index. Increase in free water, and this free water is still in urine. Examples of conditions that causes water diuresis: alcohol, ADH fall are seen in problems of the posterior pituitary or problems of the hypothalamus. And I call the name of that condition nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. Now, to go to the next one here, which was osmotic diuresis. Now, for osmotic diuresis here, urine production increases because there is an osmotic substance. A good example of an osmotic substance is mannitol. Mannitol is an example of an osmotic substance that has been used in treatment of raised intracranial pressure. All right, so people who have raised intracranial pressure can use mannitol. Mannitol is an osmotic substance that drags water to itself, and as water increases, what happens? Water is removed in the urine. Pressure diuresis is going to be working on the basis of that changes in pressure in the cortex or changes in pressure in the medulla of the kidney can alter the amount of urine produced. And this particular mechanism is cancelled by a particular procedure called autoregulation. So you may wish to take note of these important things that have been highlighted. So for water diuresis, I gave examples. The increase in free water. A good example again, alcohol will cause increase in urine. If there's a fall in ADH as seen in problems of posterior pituitary or hypothalamus, which is called in nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, we can also see water diuresis. For osmotic diuresis, there is increase in urine production because of an osmotic substance. A good example of an osmotic substance is mannitol that drags water to itself and increases the urine production. And I said that's been used for treatment of raised intracranial pressure. Then likewise, for pressure diuretics happens to be on the basis of the amount of pressure or fluid that reaches the cortex and the medulla of the kidney. But like I said, this whole procedure of pressure diuresis is cancelled out by the concept of auto-regulation. So this has been a beautiful time discussing an essay on diuretics and diuresis, and I hope it made the most sense to you. Until then, see you next time.